managing producer for Feldenkrais Access, and I am so excited to be here with you for the first class of Intelligent Knees with Raz Ori. We are also joined today by Anastasi Siotis. He is a Feldenkrais trainer candidate, and he's in Manhattan, and Peggy Honig, who is a Feldenkrais assistant trainer. She's in Silver Spring, Maryland. If you have any questions throughout the course of the lesson, please type into the chat if you're joining us from Zoom, or type into the comments field if you're joining us from Facebook or YouTube, and the two of them will assist you in guiding you through any challenges, confusion, difficulty that you may encounter. And we really want to help you, so please don't hesitate to reach out. And we're also joined today by Nadia Genois, who's a Feldenkrais practitioner in Montreal. And Nadia will be doing the lesson in sitting. So if you need to translate today's lesson into a sitting position, please use Nadia's visual presence as a guide. I'll be spotlighting her periodically so that you can see how she's adapting the lesson to a sitting position. And if you need to see her more often, please also write into the platforms you're joining us from, and I will do everything I can to make it as easy for you as possible to make that adaptation. I will also be periodically spotlighting our team of Feldenkrais practitioner volunteers who are doing the lesson as instructed, so that they can also provide a visual guide as you move through the lesson today. If you're joining us from Zoom, please have your camera oriented so that your whole self is in view, so that Raz can direct his instructions to you. And if you want to have your camera turned off, that's totally fine. Just press the stop video button on the Zoom menu. And I think that's it from me. So I'll hand you over to Raz.
Thank you, Juniper, and welcome everyone to our first class of Intelligent Knees for Better Walking. I'm Raz Ori from Tel Aviv. So I'll tell you a little bit about why walking and why knees. So, of course, the quality of how we walk, the quality of how we carry ourselves and move ourselves in this world is reflective of the quality of how we are with ourselves, of the quality of our life. And by improving the quality of how we walk, we can actually potentiate the improvement of the entire quality of our being and existence. And this series will be geared towards that, towards improving the ease and the fluidity and the quality of how we walk. Why the knees? Well, the knees are the largest joints in our body, and they have a significant role on how we mobilize ourselves and how we coordinate our entire body in walking. And the interesting thing is, and I'll show you this through a video, just a sec, I'll share my screen. I want to show you something. Just a second. There. Just one sec. Excellent. So here we see.
Sorry, Raz.
Yeah.
Okay, now go.
All right. So we see a knee. Here is the knee. And sorry, things keep popping up on my screen. I hope it's not interfering.
It's
And
just the
when,
one. Oh, sorry.
yeah, okay. And when the knee is looked at in an isolated way as a joint or as a mechanical unit that allows movement, what we primarily see is that it allows the movement of changing the angle between the lower leg and the upper leg. And here we see the lower leg bending in relation to the upper leg by using the joint of the knee. Now, we can also see that the knee allows for the movement of the upper leg, the thigh. This is the bone of the thigh, changing its angle in relation to the lower leg. So the knee serves these two purposes of being able to change the angle of the lower leg and the upper leg in relation to each other. But this is a very isolated way to look at the knee. It's a very isolated perspective. So what happens in real life or in walking, which we will see in a moment. Yeah. So what happens in real life and in walking is that, in fact, the knee serves both directions of changing the lower leg in relation to the thigh and vice versa, meaning that both of these movements occur simultaneously from both ends of the joint. But then you can see that everything that the knee does is not isolated. In fact, it's very well, highly coordinated with the movements of the feet, with the movements of the ankle, with the movements of the hip joints. And this animation, which I really like for various reasons, this animation, there's something nice about it in which you can see that walking, at least for this animation, has a kind of bounciness to it, that there's a little bit of a bounce in the walking. There's like a little bit of a springiness to the walk. Now, this is not necessarily the ideal way to walk what we see in the animation. And in fact, we will use this animation in the next lessons to actually point out some of the inefficiencies in his walking. But there's something very clear about the bounciness of his gait. And the knee not only serves the ability to bend and extend that angle between the lower leg and the upper leg, but it also acts like a spring, like a very well coordinated spring when it functions with the entire rest of ourselves. Meaning that in order to improve the functionality of our knee, a very well coordinated mechanism, a very well synergistic mechanism or organization needs to be developed between the knee and the joints that are under and above the knee. And that's where we're going at with this class series, how to better integrate the use of our knee, how to revive this quality of springiness and lightness that is at the same time stable enough that we can trust, that we can have confidence in, to help us mobilize ourselves with more ease. So for the purpose of what we're going to do today, we're going to do a lesson primarily lying on the floor. So I just want to clarify something about what we're going to do on the floor. And Juniper, you can bring up the illustration. So we're going to do a lesson primarily lying on the floor. And what we want to make sure is that the surface that we're lying on is not too slippery. Are we seeing your screen, Juniper?
I guess not, if you didn't see it.
We did see it.
Oh, okay, we did. One
Oh.
sec, I'll bring it up again.
So we want to make
Oops, no, that's Mickey, sorry. Hold on a second.
So we want to make sure, as Juniper brings it up, we want to make sure that, is it up?
No,
No.
no.
It's
Sorry, we
coming,
want to
it's
make sure
coming.
that the surface that you're lying on is not a slippery one. So we want to make sure that you have enough friction to be able to do these movements that we're going to do with the legs and feet in such a way that the foot doesn't slide. So if you have a yoga mat, that's ideal. If you feel during the lesson that the foot is sliding, maybe you want to take your socks off. If you're lying on a rug, sometimes the foot on the rug would provide you with better stability. Did we see the illustration?
It's up here now.
Okay.
So
I'm not
interesting, you can't see it. I
I'm
don't know.
not seeing it for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh,
I definitely see it.
Okay, cool. Great. So what we're going to be doing during this lesson is we're going to use one leg in a situation where the knee is lightly bent forward and the foot is leaning on the heel. So sometimes the other leg will be standing completely, the foot completely on the floor and the knee completely bent. But the other leg, which is actually going to be the primary focus of the lesson, is almost straight, not quite. It's, let's say, a third way bent to a standing position in such a way that it's only the heel touching the floor and the forward part of the foot is actually disconnected, as we see with this young man left leg. Okay, so for simplicity's sake, I would just say the knee lightly bent, leaning on the back of your heel. And you will all know what I'm talking about from the illustration. Good, so let's get on with the lesson. We're going to start in standing after this whole introduction on what we're going to do on the ground, but we will start in standing. And first, I want you to just walk around the room, just take a few steps around the room so you can feel the quality of your walking. And you can feel the quality of how your knee bends and extends, the quality of how you bear weight on that knee and that leg. And the general sensation, do you feel like there's a fluidity between one step and the next? Or is it somehow disconnected, or is there like a break in the movement or in the transition? And does the contact of your foot with the floor and how your knee bears your weight, does it feel harsh and rough, or is it soft and springy? Is there like an elasticity to it or a roughness to it? Good. And now see if you can come and stand in front of the wall, in front of a wall. So you're facing the wall, not too far away from it and not too close. So you can place your fingertips on the wall, just for having a little bit of balance without leaning into the wall. So your fingertips help you to modulate that you don't have a lot of pressure on your fingertips. They're just there for support and for giving you a frame. And in this position, see if you can very gently and lightly allow your knees to bend just a little bit, and then straighten them back to the original position. And do that back and forth a few times, very slowly, not trying to bend them into a steep angle, not trying to squat, but just like trying a little bit like you're going to be sitting on a high chair. And of course, make sure that your hands are in a position that helps you. If you feel like they're interfering or they're not aiding, you can also do it with your hands by your sides. The wall is not mandatory. The fingers on the wall are only there if they help you. Good. And now notice an interesting thing. We already see from this very simple situation that the knees do not work in isolation, that the knee is not some mechanical joint, mechanical device that works on its own. In this simple movement, notice what happens to the weight on your feet, how your feet respond to the changing angle of your knees, how your ankles responds to the changing angle in your knee, and what happens in your hip joints. And notice how by lightly bending your knees, you can direct yourself to go a little bit down and then a little bit back up. So you can feel your head and face in relation to your hands move a little bit downwards, as if your whole torso is like an elevator moving down and back up. Good. And between your knees bending and your head moving up and down, what happens along your spine? And does it feel elastic? Does this bending and straightening of your knees, does this going a little bit down and up, does it feel like a spring? Does it have elasticity to it? Excellent. Good. And come lie on your mat. And for those that this is perhaps their first Feldenkrais lesson, I just want to say hi, hello, welcome to the Feldenkrais method. Our philosophy is to put our personal comfort as the primary consideration. The first thing, highest top on the list when doing a lesson is our personal comfort. So everything that we're going to do, it is up to you to make the lesson right for yourself, in the sense that if you do feel discomfort from the movements or from the positions, you have to adjust. Either do slow, take more rests, change the movement a little bit so that it accommodates your own personal needs. So your comfort and your ability to sense yourself and navigate inside the lesson is far more important than me or than just following the instructions. So now, lying on your back, just take a moment to feel your legs and your knees when you're resting. If you need a little bit of head support, of course, make sure that you're comfortable in your head and in your neck. Good. And even in this situation, lying on your back with your legs straight, how do you perceive your legs? Do they feel like they're ready for action? Again, like a spring that you only need to load the spring and it's already reacting to be unloaded. Or like an elastic band that you just pull it a little bit and it would pull back.
Don't worry about the tech ones, Peggy.
Oh, Juniper,
Period.
you're unmuted. Or does it feel like your legs have some sort of heaviness to them? Does it feel like they would move with ease if you try to move them? Would your knees bend with ease? Good, and take a moment just to feel your entire contact on the floor of the back of your pelvis, your back, your spine, your shoulder blades, your head and your neck. Excellent. And now, do you remember that illustration that we saw? So bend just your left knee a little bit forward, not a lot, just a little bit forward, so that you can lean your heel on the floor in such a way that it's stable enough to stay there, but the forward part of your foot is not touching the floor. So the leg is not standing, but it's just lightly bent forward and your heel is on the floor. And in this position, now again, if your heel is too far away from you, if your leg is almost straight, you need to bring it towards you a little bit, pull your knee a little bit towards you. But if your knee is very close to you, the foot is going to be already standing, which again is different. So you're somewhere in between the standing position and the straight position. Excellent. And now just bend your left foot, bend your left ankle a little bit so that your toes, the toes of your left foot, come up a little bit towards your shin, your lower leg, your knee. And then allow the front part of your foot to go back down towards the floor, not touching the floor because of the position, but back towards the floor. And do that a few times, just bending and extending your ankle. Bending your foot, folding your foot towards you as you're leaning on the back of your heel, and allowing your foot to move away from you as you're leaning on the back of your heel. Now, again, if it's a slippery surface, you want to make sure that maybe you need to take your socks off, or you need to have enough friction so that you feel that your leg is not working too hard to maintain that position. But your leg is not going to be completely relaxed either. It's going to have to continuously work a little bit because of the instability in that position. Good. And just notice how when playing with your foot in this way, how it bends your knee a little bit more, and how it bends your hip joint. It folds your knee and your hip joint just from playing with the angle of your foot. Just from having your foot leaning on the back of your heel, playing with the angle of your foot, how it very gently mobilizes your knee and your hip joint. That's right. And whenever you need to rest, you stretch out your leg and rest. And you take as many pauses as you need during the lesson. Excellent. Now, bring your right foot to completely stand on the floor. So your right foot is standing just like we saw in the illustration. Your right foot is completely standing and your left knee just half bent with the back of your heel on the floor, and continue doing this very simple, gentle movement of your foot coming towards you and away. A little bit like the movement that we do in the car on the accelerator, on the gas pedal, or on the brake. Just this simple movement of your foot. Excellent. Good. And now notice, what do you do with your eyes? As your foot comes towards you, as your toes come towards you, do you move your eyes down towards your foot or up away from you? Yeah. So see if you can allow your eyes to move with your foot, meaning that when your toes move towards your head, upwards, we will call this upwards because it's towards your head, move your eyes upwards as well, as if though you want to look towards the wall that's a little bit behind you. That's right. So your toes and your knee and your eye are all moving in the same direction, up and down, and up and down. Excellent. And then notice an interesting thing. Between your foot, between your leg, your whole leg is moving from this gentle movement. And your eyes, what happens along your spine? Is there an up and down movement along your spine as well? Or are these movements isolated for the left leg and your eyes? Or is there some connection between your foot and your eyes throughout your spine? Excellent. Bring your leg down and both legs down and rest for a moment. Good. Now, during the rests, if you feel like you need to lie on your side for a moment, feel free when we pause to always rest in a different position if you need to change your orientation. Good. Bring your right foot standing again in the same way. Lightly bend your left knee. Lean your heel on the floor with the forward part of your foot not touching the floor. And again, do the same movement up and down with your foot and your toes. But this time, see if you can create a small circular movement with your foot so that your toes draw a little circle. And with the circular movement of your toes and foot, allow your left knee to move a little bit up and down and right and left. So your left knee also draws a small circle. Now, of course, the position of your heel on the floor, you have to make sure that it's a comfortable position for you. If maybe you need to place it a little bit more to the left of you, or maybe closer to you. So you find whatever adjustments you need so that there is enough stability in that position. That's right. But also a lot of mobility for your ankle. And it creates this funny mechanism in which, without thinking about your knee, you're constantly moving your knee just from the movements of your foot. That's right. And now, as your knee is doing a circular movement, see if you can allow your head and eyes to follow that circular movement. So your eyes move to the right with your knee, to the left with your knee, a little bit up when your toes come towards you, a little bit down when your toes move down. That's right. So your eyes are, in a way, they're copying the movement of your big toe. They're copying the movement of your foot. They're copying the movement of your knee, or accompanying that movement. And notice what else accompanies the movement when your eyes and head and left leg move in this simple circular motion. What happens in your pelvis? What happens in your chest? Excellent. Good. Bring both legs back down and rest for a moment. And now bring your right knee a little bit forward to lean the back of your right heel on the floor or the bottom of your heel on the floor, but in such a way that the front part of your foot is not touching the floor. It's a little bit disconnected. And from this position, bend and extend your ankle. Allow your foot to come a little bit towards you, your toes come towards you and away. Very gently. Of course, you don't have to go into the maximum bending of the ankle. You don't have to reach, you don't have to use the entire range. In fact, it will be a good idea if you save at least 25% as a reserve. So you're away from the extreme position of your ankle. Good. And now again, feel how your knee moves from that movement a little bit towards you and a little bit away, and how it increases the fold in your hip, the bending in your hip. And see if you can connect your eyes to the movement of your foot and your toes, so that when your toes move upwards, your eyes move upwards as well. When your toes move down, back towards the floor, your eyes move down. But then again, what happens between the foot and your eyes? What else moves up and down? Are there more parts of you that move with your toes and with your eyes? Good. And now bend your left leg. So have your left foot completely standing on the floor. And keep doing the same movement with your right foot, with your right ankle. Very simple. Of course, there's a change from having the other foot standing, from having your left foot completely standing. It might feel easier to do the movement with your right ankle. It might feel more connected to the movement of your eyes. That's right, but you just keep feeling and sensing. If you can make a very simple and easy connection between your eyes and your foot in terms of the inner quality of the movement, that they're both moving very lightly in a coordinated way, to then gradually feel, are there more parts connected to that movement? Is it just the leg and the eyes? Or does something happen in your pelvis? Oh, what about your neck? What about your spine? Excellent. Bring both legs back down and rest for a moment. Now, of course, what happens in a very spontaneous and natural way to all of us when we feel discomfort or pain or limitation, for example, knee pain, it becomes very hard to feel the connection of fluidity between the different parts of ourselves. And pain has an isolating tendency in our brain, meaning that it makes us pay attention and perceive the area in which we feel difficulty as an isolated component. But in fact, what is most needed in those moments is to be able to bring our entire self and all of our resources, including all of our healthy parts to be able to aid the area that is with which we're experiencing a difficulty. So a lot of what we're going to try to do is to use very simple movements to remind ourselves and to revive how each part of ourselves actually works in coordination with the rest of ourselves. So bring your, what was it? Your right knee a little bit forward to lean on the heel, and your left knee completely standing. And play again with that angle of your foot, up and down, folding and extending, and then make it into a nice small circular movement so that you're combining a little bit of a right and left with the movement of your foot so that you allow your toes to move right and left. You can feel the pressure on the back of your heel as it moves up and down. It's also rolling to the right and to the left. Allow your right knee to move a little bit right and left as it's folding and extending. That's right. And then follow that same idea with your eyes. So your eyes move a little bit right and left and up and down. So that small circular movement that you're describing with your big toe, with your foot, with your heel, you're also describing with your eyes. Right, now, the first task is to make it simple enough that you feel that in terms of the timing and in terms of the quality, they become like one thing. But then, after there is that good condition or good overall quality of coordination, you might start to feel that there are actually more parts of yourself that are moving with your foot and your eyes in this circular motion. That it's not just the leg and the eyes. What about your pelvis? What about your neck? What about your chest? Excellent. Bring both legs back down and rest for a moment. Now, there's an interesting thing about this position. Because the foot is not underneath the knee, there is constant muscular tone to maintain the leg in that position. It's not a position in which you can fall asleep into. If you would fall asleep with your leg in that position, your leg would drop. So in one sense, we're trying to use a very simple movement to create a very simple mobility, but there's a constant muscular tension. There's a constant, which in a way mimics a little bit what happens in walking. You can never be fully relaxed in walking. As fluid and elastic and springy as walking can be, there is constant muscular tension throughout our entire body. So now bring both legs into this position, both knees a little bit bent, leaning on that bottom part of your heel, but the front part of your foot is off the floor. That's right. And then play with both feet, both ankles bending towards you, your toes coming towards you, and your knees folding a little bit from that movement. And it folds your hip joints a little bit, and allow your eyes to move upwards with the movement of your toes. So your toes are moving up towards your head, and your eyes are moving up inside your head, rolling up inside your head. Excellent. And then again, notice what else moves up Are there more parts of yourself that move upwards towards your head? Good. Now do a small circular movement with both toes, both knees. So they go together to the right, they go together to the left. They go together towards you, they go together towards the floor. That's right. Small circular movement with both feet. Again, if they're very close to your pelvis, your legs are almost standing. You want your heels to be quite far away from you. You'll feel that they're far away from you. In fact, they're not close to your pelvis. That's right. They're still far from coming to a full standing position. Good. And move your eyes in that simple circular movement. Excellent. And change the direction of the circle. Move your eyes with your knees, with your toes in the opposite direction of the circle. That's right. Great. And straighten both legs back down and rest for a moment. Good. So now we want to promote more movement up and down, not a bigger movement in the knee or a bigger movement in the foot and the ankle, but more of a connectivity that allows for everything to move with the feet. So let's do it this way. Have your right foot standing again. And just bend your left knee a little bit, leaning on the bottom of your heel. Excellent. And do the same thing again. Bend your ankle a little bit, bend your foot, your knee comes towards you, your eyes move up. But as you do it, feel that you can push a little bit into your heel so that as your toes move up, your pelvis will also roll a little bit upwards, meaning that you will feel a little bit of a changing pressure on the back of your pelvis, moving from the bottom part of your pelvis towards your back. So in a way, just as your heel, the back of your heel is rolling up, your pelvis is doing like a micro movement of that rolling upwards. That's right. And in fact, that movement of your pelvis with your eyes, it would also take your head a little bit backwards. So also on the back of your skull, you might feel that little bit of movement upwards towards the top of your head. Very gently. Good. Now place your left hand behind your lower back. See if you can slide your hand underneath your lower back of course, in a position that is comfortable for your elbow and wrist and shoulder. If you cannot find a way to be comfortable with your arm like that, then don't. There's no need. The hand is an auxiliary. If it becomes a disturbance, there's no need to have your hand in that position. And keep on doing this movement with your foot, thinking of how can you mobilize your ankle with this little bit of pressure on your heel so that it rolls your pelvis up towards your head. And your hand, if it's positioned there in the arch of your lower back, you would feel how your lower back comes and presses a little bit into your hand, as if the contact of your lower back becomes more flat on the back of your hand. And so your entire spine moves a little bit upwards towards your head with a softening of your lower back into the back of your hand. Now you might feel that it's very, very small, that the movement of the pelvis is very small, or that the changes that occur on the back of your left hand are very small, and that is perfectly fine. You don't want to change anything. You don't want to engineer the movement in any way. You just do a simple movement and feel how you react. Feel how you organize into it. Feel how the different parts of yourself relate to this simple movement. Good. Bring out your hand out from underneath you, straighten both legs for a moment and rest. And bring your left foot standing on the floor. Bend your right knee a little bit to lean just on the bottom of the heel. But again, you want to feel that your right foot is much further away from you downwards than your left foot, significantly far away from you. Your left foot is close to your pelvis to be in a standing position, and your right foot is very far away from you. Good. And as you bend your foot, rolling on the back of your heel, on the bottom towards the back of your heel, moving your eyes upwards with the movement of your toes. See if you can create a little bit of a pressure on your heel as you're doing it, so that it would also push your pelvis a little bit up. So it would tilt your pelvis up towards your head, as if your pelvis is doing a similar movement to your heel and to your eyes. So your heel, your pelvis, and your eyes, they're all rolling upwards towards your head. That's right. Now, for some, placing the right hand behind the back can really aid in feeling and organizing the movement. For some, not so much, and for some others, it might actually interfere. So the hand behind the back is just an auxiliary. If it helps you, use it. If it doesn't, you can keep doing the movement with your hand to your side. So all you're looking for is this simple movement in your foot, but now with an intention that whatever happens in your foot and in your knee happens throughout your torso as well, and your pelvis and up your spine. And this movement of your eyes upwards, is it being translated to your head? So your head moves a little bit up. That's right. Excellent. And bring your hand out from underneath you, stretch out your legs, and rest for a moment. And bring both legs again to the same position. So both knees are a little bit bent forward, leaning on the bottom of your heel towards the back of your heel, your feet quite far away from you. They're quite far away, and place both hands behind your lower back. Again, only if it's helping, only if it's aiding. So your hands are, the palm of your hand is on the floor. The palm of your hand is on the floor, so that the back of your back is touching the back of your hand. That's right. And in a comfortable place for you to be in, bending both ankles, both feet, bringing your toes towards you and away from you, and allowing your eyes to move up and down with the movement of your toes. But then also feeling, is there a way to do this movement with your feet so that the way you roll on your heels pushes a little bit into the floor so that it makes your pelvis roll upwards as well. So that you find that your entire self moves a little bit up and down. Your entire body moves in the direction of your toes, with your toes. Wherever your toes are going, it's like being transmitted or copied to your entire self. That's right. And what this means in terms of your lower back, that it also moves a little bit up and down on your hands. It might be also moving a little bit backwards, bringing your lower back into a more intimate, fuller contact with the back of your hands. That's right. Moving your chin a little bit away from your throat and back down. So in fact, your chin and the tip of your nose are moving in space in correlation with your toes. That's right. Excellent. Bring your hands out from underneath you and stretch out your legs and rest for a moment. Good. Now we'll do another variation of this exact movement before we start mixing it up. So bring both feet standing for a moment, both feet completely standing, so that you can organize your hands to be underneath your pelvis this time. So you want to make sure your arms are long downwards towards your heels, so you can tuck your right wrist underneath your pelvis and then tuck your left wrist underneath your pelvis. Your elbows are almost completely straight and your full arms are a little bit tucked underneath you. So your pelvis can lie on your hands or on it might even be your forearms. You might feel if you stretch your arms downwards long, your fingertips towards your heels, you might feel that your pelvis is really leaning on your forearms. That's right. So it's not behind your lower back this time, but really underneath your pelvis. Excellent. And now slide your feet down so that again, you're in that position where your feet are not standing, they're far away from you, a little bit bent, not completely straight, leaning on the bottom towards the back of your heel. And again, do this movement of your toes and your feet up and down, allowing your knees to bend a little bit every time you bend your feet, moving your eyes up and down with your toes, and rolling your pelvis a little bit up and pushing just a tiny bit of a push on your heels so that you can feel that your entire self is being pushed upwards in relation to your hands. So now your torso is lying on your hands, or at least part of your torso is lying on your hands. And you want to feel that it's sliding up and down on your hands in a very gentle movement. That's right, in a very gentle movement. Good. Now, once you have that up and down movement, see if you can do it smaller, softer, but faster. Gradually, without hurrying up, gradually do the movement of your ankles a little bit faster and smaller. That's right. A little bit faster and smaller, like you're waving, that's right. Like you're waving with your feet. Or if your feet were in the water, you're splashing a little bit of water. That's right. Bup, 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 up, up and down. Excellent. Until you feel that your entire self with your pelvis, with your chest, with your head is rocking, or it's being bounced up and down from this movement of your ankles. With very little pressure on your heels. You don't have to push strongly into your heels. It just happens almost automatically from directing your ankles and your toes to this up and down directionality. That's right. Bouncing yourself a little bit up and down. Excellent. Bring your hands out from underneath you again. Stretch out your legs so both legs can rest, both arms can rest. Right. Now bend just the left foot. Keep your right leg straight. Bend just the left foot, not standing, but in this way of leaning on the back of the heel. The right leg is straight and the left knee is a little bit bent. And do the same thing up with your toes coming up towards you. Thinking of rolling your pelvis upwards towards your head. Not rocking, do it slow, but this time, every time your toes move down, see if you can continue the movement of your pelvis downwards. So when your toes move down towards your foot, you arch a little bit your lower back so that you're doing the opposite of tilting your pelvis towards your head. You want to follow, you want to accentuate the movement downwards with your pelvis so that you can feel that you're leaning more on your tail towards your tailbone, arching your lower back a little bit. That's right. And by doing that movement downwards with your pelvis, it would give you more of a range from where to come back up. So you would have more of like a dynamic range for the up and down movement of your pelvis. Excellent. And do it with your foot standing. With your right foot standing. Your left foot is as it is, and bring your right foot standing and keep doing the same thing. But this, again, accentuating the return movement of your toes towards the floor and trying to use that return movement to accentuate the movement of your pelvis downwards so that it pulls your head down, it pulls your eyes down, it pulls your entire spine down, but then it would give you more from where to come back up. So you have more of a dynamic range for your pelvis to tilt up and down, and for your eyes to move up and down. That's right. Excellent. And switch over between your legs. So your left foot is standing completely and your right leg is far away from you with your right knee a little bit bent. And do the same thing here. Bend your foot towards you, your toes come towards you, your eyes move up. You look for that movement of your pelvis rolling upwards towards your head. But then as you go down, see if you can accentuate the return movement of your pelvis moving downwards to continue the downwards movement of your pelvis, arching your lower back. So then it pulls your chin a little bit further down towards your chest until you can feel your entire spine sliding up and down between your shoulder blades. sliding up and down with the movement of your toes. That's right. You might even feel that in the downwards movement, you can pull yourself with your right heel. The way that your right heel contacts the floor, you can even pull yourself a little bit downwards to accentuate the arching in the lower back. Just a little bit. Excellent. Stretch both legs and rest for a moment. Right. And bring both feet to this position on the back of your heels, not standing, but far away from you. That's right. And see if you can have both hands behind your lower back. And again, hands behind the back is not mandatory, only if it helps you, only if it's possible and helps you. Good. Now, so hold on just a sec. Bring your hands from underneath you. Stretch out your legs for a moment, just for a sec. That's right. So this up and down movement that we're trying to elicit, there's a lot to say about it. But one very fundamental thing to say about it is that position of your head. Because the movement is traveling up your spine, up towards your head, and we want your head to respond to that movement, to move up and down with that movement. If your head is not aligned with your spine, it's going to interfere. It's going to create blockage. It's going to block the movement, and even it might create too much strain and stress in your neck. So if you have head support, you want to make sure that it's not lifting your head so high up to bring your chin towards your throat. Okay, so that's very important. This is a good opportunity in the lesson to test. Maybe the head support that you have behind your head is not needed at all. Maybe it can be reduced. So now bring both legs again to the same position with your hands behind your lower back. And again, play with that movement of your feet. Up and down, rolling on your heels. That's right. Your feet never touching the floor, just the back of your heels. But use the movement of your ankles and feet to roll your pelvis up with your eyes moving up, with your head moving up. That's why you need to make sure that you don't have too much of a pillow, too high of a pillow there, because it would block the movement of your head. And then as you move down, as your toes move back down towards the floor, see if you can bring your entire self down with your toes. So your pelvis tilts down towards your tail. You'll feel your lower back arching a little bit away from your hands. That's right. And feeling your entire spine sliding between your shoulders, between your arms, between your elbows, up and down. So the only thing that remains more or less constant is your hands. Your hands and elbows are like fixated on the floor. But then in relation to that frame of your arms, everything moves up and down. That's right. Very gently, but very precisely, very clearly. Excellent. Bring your arms out from underneath you. Stretch out your legs and rest for a moment. One last variation. Place both feet standing again. Place both arms long underneath your pelvis. So now it's your pelvis lying on your arms. And again, if you can't do these position with your arms, that's totally fine. They're just there to bring another aspect, but everything is already there without the arms. And your feet again on the bottom of your heels. And again, play with this up and down motion, but again, allowing yourself not only to go up and return, but to accentuate the movement downwards. That's right. And you might feel that you can even use your arms a little bit, your arms and elbows and forearms. You can push yourself and pull yourself a tiny bit with your arms. You wouldn't need a lot of pushing or pulling. Your feet would do most of the work, but you might feel that with your hands gripping the floor, you give a little bit of a pull and everything moves downwards in an even not a bigger range, but with more connectivity, with more fluidity, with more precision. That's right. And again, your chin, you want to make sure that your chin, your lower jaw, your neck, they're all free to respond and to move with the movement of your spine, with the movement of your ankles. Excellent. Bring your arms out from underneath you, stretch out your legs and rest. Good, and just take a moment to notice the sensation of your contact with the floor. But more importantly, how do you feel your knees and your legs now when they're resting? Or do they feel like they're ready for action? If you would need to bend your knee or move your leg, does it feel like it's there waiting for you to call on them to move? Excellent. And slowly take your time to roll up through one side and come to sitting. And whenever you're ready, there's no rush. Whenever you're ready, come up to standing. Yeah. And if you can stand without the wall or without any support, just stand there for a moment. Just feel you're standing for a moment before you test or try anything out. And just feel what is the perception of your knees? How do your knees, how do they organize underneath you? And how do they support you? What do they do? How are they on that line from your foot up to your torso? That's right. Do they feel a little bigger than usual? Do they feel more bent or more straight? Do they feel more underneath you or less underneath you? That's right. Now, if you can have your eyes closed and you don't have any stability issues, you don't necessarily need the wall. You can just in place try to do what we did in the beginning. But for stability, for having your eyes closed and feeling very stable, it's good to stand in front of the wall with your fingertips touching the wall. So you're not leaning forward into the wall. You're totally above yourself, but your fingers are just giving you that frame and assurance that that's right, just for the sake of stability. And from here, very gently, what would it be like to bend your knees? Very lightly bending your knees and straightening your knees. That's right. That's right. And just feel that how the movement of your knees is not an isolated action. It affects the distribution of weight on your foot. It affects your ankle. It moves your entire self downwards a little bit. And then you rise a little bit back up when your knees straighten. That's right. And just feel that quality of bending and straightening, of that going down and going up. Is it different from when we started? Oh, you might feel, oh, one knee is doing it very differently than the other. And maybe you'll feel, oh, it's taking my pelvis down, but on one side in one direction and a little bit differently on the other side of the pelvis. And don't try to orchestrate, don't try to fix or change, just do a simple movement and feel the general quality. Good. And walk around the room, take a few steps, and just notice what your knees, what you're walking, what your intelligence feels like. Your intelligence in movement. The transition from one step to the other. The softness, the springiness in your foot, in your knee, in your self-carriage. Excellent. So, thank you all for coming today. If you've signed up for the class series, we'll see you next week. If you haven't yet, it's not too late, and we'll see you next week. And with each lesson, we will keep exploring how to use our knees in a simpler, more organized way to revive this whole fluidity in action, this whole springiness in action from very simple situations like we did today on the floor, to then be able to transition them into walking, to bring our entire walking into a more graceful fluidity. So thank you, and to the Feldenkrais Axis team and to our video volunteers.